All right. Hi, welcome. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Balanced Lady Boss Show live. I'm so pumped about this. Mel, I would just say that I actually think I prefer the live vibes than when I'm usually recording the podcast, then edit it. And because the juice of the conversation, you don't kind of really get that when it's pre-recorded, right? So I'm hoping that this format is one that people like because maybe I'll do this more often. So welcome to those of you who have already joined. This is Stacy Hines, your Balanced Lady Boss, and we are doing a live edition of my podcast, The Balanced Lady Boss Show, which can be found where all podcasts are listened to, and of course can be found here on YouTube where we are streaming to live. Tonight, I want to welcome my guest, Melissa Powell, and you'll see with her name, she has Map Your Leap. Melissa, before we jump into the conversation, I would love you to just give us a brief introduction of yourself so people get to know a little bit about you, and then we can dive into our hot flashes discussion because we're getting right into it tonight.
Okay, no problem. I am looking forward to this discussion. Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Powell, as you can see. I am an entrepreneur, technology entrepreneur that focused on the fields of HR, immigration, and overall emerging technologies. And I help people to improve their lives. I help people to move across borders, and I help companies to improve business processes technology wise, especially through HR. And yeah, I just have a goal to one by one make the world a better place.
Oh, that's such a worthy goal to have. Awesome. Welcome. Thanks, Mel. Okay, so tonight we're going to be having a conversation around a really hot topic. So, if you are a woman, no matter what age you are, but if you're a woman who is already having her period and is anywhere from 25 up to 60, you've been seeing in your feed on social media just all these conversations about perimenopause. And so I've been thinking about having a discussion on perimenopause, and I've seen a few different conversations happen. Like I've seen some new books come out. For example, I know that Oprah had a book that she rolled out on her little Oprah club, and
Okay.
they had a couple people join to have talks. I've seen Halle Berry talking about it quite openly, and so it's kind of trending. And initially, I was like, oh, well, I want to make sure that I'm talking about it from the scientific perspective and maybe have a doctor on. But then I was like, no, that's kind of boring. I really want to I want to talk to people that having the feelings and the symptoms and the experience because I want to compare notes, right, with somebody else that may be having the experiences and also on a journey. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So, Mel, you ready? What do you think? We
Yeah,
can
let's do it. No time like the present.
no time like the present. Okay, so first of all, I need to just make sure that everybody is aware of what perimenopause is. So, perimenopause and menopause are actually both transitional phases in the lives of women that indicate an end to our reproductive years, right? Um, for me, just even reading that definition, I can tell you my gut wrenches when I read that, right? And you
Okay,
think,
but it's important to know that the reproductive system is still working until it completely stops. So,
yeah, that was another interesting thing.
yeah,
Like,
and this
you're
process
gonna
can be like
expire.
15 years of process.
Yeah, you're gonna expire, right? So first things first, I wanted to share how some persons may be hearing about it for themselves for the first time. I know for me, what happened is I've been talking with, I suppose, different persons in my family or my friend group, just regular conversations just about different things that were going on with me physically. And then somebody forwarded me like a really popular, one of those really popular infographics, where they get forwarded multiple times in WhatsApp or in text messaging. And the title of this infographic, I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it to show you guys. The title of the infographic was the 40 symptoms of perimenopause that start between ages 35 to 45 or something like that. And first of all, let me tell you, when I read that start between 35 and 45, I was like, whoa. And then when I read the symptoms, I was like, no, but I've been dealing with this since in my 20s. So, like some of the things, like, no, man, this is me.
And
This
that's the
is,
thing too. There's so many overlapping things in this perimenopause phase. There's the overlapping of if you have mental issues, mental health issues,
yeah,
if you have heart issues,
yeah,
if you like it, just there's a lot of overlap.
yeah, yeah, which makes it tricky as a woman, right? Because we got some issues. We just be always dealing with stuff. We're really resilient. That's the first thing. Like we can
Listen, let me
navigate
tell
a
you.
whole heap of things. All
Let me
right.
tell you.
So, how did you come into hearing about perimenopause for the first time? Do you remember?
It was actually not that long ago, because I realized that I was having some extreme symptoms pre-period, and I would start to talk about it because I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm the messenger because a lot of people don't talk about things, but I talk about everything because
Talk all the things.
I need to
You
get
talk
above,
all the
I need to get to
things.
the bottom of everything, right?
Yeah.
So, um, of course, some symptoms I was like, and I have my gynecologist on WhatsApp, and I message him. I'm like, oh my god, am I going through menopause?
Yeah.
he's like, calm down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're not going through that. You're too young. All of these things, right? Because also, when you have symptoms and you start reading online, you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing
Mm-hmm.
all of these things and you self-diagnose all kinds of crazy things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So anyway, I didn't really know about this perimenopause thing. And so it was in talking about it that other women were like, oh my God, this perimenopause in its 40s and whatever. And I'm like, perimenopause in
It's
its
a
40s?
thing.
What is this
Yeah.
thing you're talking
Yeah. It's a
about?
thing. Yeah.
And that's really how I came to learn about it. Now, I have not
Mhm.
been um, clinically diagnosed, if there is such a thing with
Mhm.
perimenopause, but I do present some of the symptoms. And I
Okay.
think one of the things that would solidify that it would be it is if I do the hormone tests, which I haven't
Right.
recently, but everything else, the thyroid, everything else seems to be okay. Um, but it's just the transition period, guys, we just can't avoid it. And apparently it's significantly worse in women of color that we will get most of the symptoms that
Oh,
other women
that's fun
will
to
not
know.
experience.
All this beautiful melanin is helping us out. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for that, Melissa. I'm going to actually pull up because I just did a couple screen grabs of some of the more common symptoms, and I just wanted to share them with our community so that you guys are a bit familiar with some of the things that we're talking about. And you may or may not be experiencing these things, or when you're talking with your girlfriends, they may be things that you're experiencing. So you have the irregular periods, which some people have that from the periods that till it stop. Periods that are heavier or lighter. Premenstrual syndrome, so your PMS is more horrific than you're
That was the
used to.
part. That was the
Yeah,
part for
that
me.
was for you. That's one of the indicators that kind of set off your flags. Breast tenderness, which is, of course, associated with just periods regularly. Weight gain. Ooh, maybe a whole bunch of people can start to blame it on this
I
part
mean, I
particular.
was very excited for this one though. You know me, and I'm like, I've been trying
Oh,
to gain weight since I was
blame
like
it on the
20.
perimenopause. It's crazy. Hair changes, which I've actually been
Yes,
seeing some
I have
other
that. Yeah.
content creators writing, putting up content about changes in their hair, heart palpitations, headaches, loss of sex drive. You see, when I did read that one on the thing there, that was the most traumatizing for me. I was like, no, we cannot even entertain that.
No, not
Um,
at all.
Concentration difficulties,
Mhm.
forgetfulness, muscle aches, UTIs, and fertility issues. Now, Mel, point out to me from this list what
All
are
of
some of
it.
the things, all of the above.
I've had I've had much heavier periods.
Yeah,
I've had worse PMS to the point where doctors have now said that it's like
chronic.
I don't remember the name of it, but it's
Oh,
basically like severe
yeah,
post premenstrual symptoms.
yeah,
Breast tenderness for sure,
yeah.
weight gain, hair changes, heart palpitations occasionally, headaches for sure, concentration difficulties and forgetfulness. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And I now that I'm
Yes.
looking at this list, actually, I did have something happening with my urinary tract that nobody could really figure out what it was, but it could have just been this transition.
Right, right, right.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so those were my which, as you can
Okay.
see, is most of the things that
It's
are
most of the list.
listed here.
Yeah, and guys, this is a really short list compared to the list of 40 that I said that I received, right? So for me, it's definitely been the heavier periods, which I did attribute to maturing or aging, but I didn't have a classification for it. The worst PMS, that is definitely something that started to happen, I would say, like a couple of years ago, where I mean, before I remember myself functioning through my periods at work and stuff, but it got to the point where I would literally have to be like down, like you'd have to put me down like on
Yeah.
tranquilizers on the
Well,
first day.
this is why we started to have this conversation, because of the conversation I
Yes.
had about having to just stop work for
Yeah.
2 weeks every month.
Yeah. It was just like insane. Weight gain, I welcome the weight gain. I'm like, yes, give me more booty because I've always been on the thinner side. And certainly when I had cancer, it was a big deal. Like if I put on a pound, yes. So
Actually,
the issue I'm having though is this middle
middle
section.
section, girl.
Like, what is that
Girl,
about? The good waistline after
that
three people
is
and I want
God.
to mash up. No, like it's so not about that, guys. Hair changes. What I actually attribute the hair stuff to, and I don't think I've experienced the hair change. I mean, I'm wearing braids now, but I had actually cut off my hair just more so because I felt like I needed to bring my sexy back, but not so much the hair changes, more the nails. Like I'm a huge person. I mean, like I'm in love with my nails. I think it's probably the one part of my body that I am obsessed with. And I've always had the nails where you go to the nail shop and when you leave, people think it's fake nails,
Yeah.
right? And I just noticed in the last 2 years that my nails are just brittle and they're breaking a lot. And it's been very difficult for me to keep a nice manicure. So I didn't notice the hair thing, but I definitely saw my nails kind of having a
Yeah.
change.
My hair has
um
definitely gotten straighter.
it has.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the curls, even just looking at like photos from like 4 years ago to
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
it's like I don't have curls anymore. I have like waves.
Okay. Yeah, and I think even online I've been seeing where other women have been talking about thinning. So like where
Yes,
the thickness of the hair it
that as
shifts.
well.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, for sure. Heart palpitations, I actually did not realize that this was on the list. And I've been having something else that started to happen to me, which was really freaking me out. Like I fully thought like, the mafia gonna commit me somewhere. Where I was having it felt like tremors. It's like it would be like, is
Yeah.
this an earthquake? But
Like
it's
bodily anxiety.
like, what is this happening? And that was on one of the lists that I saw as well. I'm not somebody that is usually troubled by headaches. Like I have friends that have really bad migraines, and I was never one to really have headaches. But then all of a sudden, no, since 2023, late 2023, coming 24, I start to have headaches. I've been tracking them to see when exactly they occur, to see if there is some kind of cycle
Yeah.
relevance to when they come on.
And tracking, everybody that's listening, tracking is important at this
Yeah,
stage now. You have to start
yeah,
tracking.
yeah. Paying attention to new things that are showing up with your body and how they're affecting you. Maybe they're more common, etc. Now, this part here, there's the sex drive piece. which interestingly enough, I've had a whole, I mean, probably need to do a whole other episode on just sex drive in your 40s. Because in my girlfriend group that I've been talking to, and we actually had some random girls' night out. I don't know if you have these, where you'll go out with your girlfriends, and then a whole other girlfriend table joins your table, and
Yeah.
you end up being best friends for that night. Yeah. So I had a night like that where pretty much everybody at the table except for one person, and there was like, I think it was 6 or 7 of us, seven, except for one person. Everybody was on the opposite side. It's like their sex drive has just shot through the roof. Like them just can't get enough. And I'm like, yeah, that's the category I want to be in. Please to excuse me from this lost category over
I feel like I've felt that way, but I have not been able to like release.
here. Right?
Like the TMI on this forum, but
Okay. That's okay, girl. You never know who's watching. Let's go. All right.
we don't
So
go the wrong reason. So.
the foggy brain, though, the foggy brain, concentration
Listen,
difficulties, and forgetfulness. Now, I actually thought, to be quite honest, that this was like a post COVID thing because
COVID thing,
I
but it's
know
not.
in COVID, especially being in tech, that I worked far too much. You know, I was just doing everything, accelerating entrepreneurs to get online and helping businesses. And it was just too much. So I know that I fully burnt out in COVID. And then I was wondering if my brain was having a hard time kind of finding a new normal. And then I started to investigate Alzheimer's because I was like, oh my God, am I displaying early signs? Like all these different things because of the foggy brain. And so while I felt a little relieved when I read about it as a menopausal or perimenopausal symptom, I was also quite annoyed because I was like, I'm a high performer. I
Yeah.
actually enjoy having great clarity. So now I'm confused. Me not understand it.
Literally, there are days when you just have zero concentration, and no matter how
Yeah.
hard you try, you just can't think of all. You can just basically sit in a vegetative state.
Yeah.
It's really
So
what happens.
let's unpack that part a little bit because how we ended up now create the genesis of Mel and I actually having this conversation is because I was at a recent entrepreneur retreat in Montego Bay. I actually did a tea time about how I ended up on this retreat for free. You guys need to go check that out, right? I'll tag it in the show notes on YouTube. But we were having a conversation because Mel went up as one of the entrepreneurs that had now finished a year inside of that particular program, even though she's been an entrepreneur for a long time. So she finished a year inside of this program, and they were doing that year in review. So she was up there with a few others, a couple guys for sure.
Men,
And
they're all men.
yes, they were all men and male. Okay. So all men and male were up on the stage talking about the year in review. And you know, you kind of hear the typical things from the guys. Yeah, it was a really tough year. I had to figure out my team and you know my time and the money and all of them things. And then here comes Melissa now with a broke out conversation.
Because I don't hold anything back.
I won't even call it oversharing. This is just, you know, research and support for somebody else who may have needed it. Here comes Mel talking about just what happened in her year. So tell us, Melissa, like what was your aha when you were doing your year in review for the entrepreneurial community?
Yeah, so I was having a conversation just before with another woman at the retreat, and I was saying to her what was going on, and she was just like, "Oh my God, this is real. I've been having this as well," and she continues to go on. And I was saying to her, this is something that really affects us, our performance, and people will just see you and think that you're lackadaisical or you're just not capable, when that's not really the truth, right? So what happened as I was going through this issue is that, remember I mentioned about having serious premenstrual symptoms, and so this actually lasted for 2 weeks. So imagine that 2 weeks out of every month I'm almost not functional. So it starts with pain, with the breast tenderness. Then it starts with the complete fog and complete just, I could sit at the computer for the entire day, nothing. like nothing will come out. Um, and that's for a couple of days, and then there's like severe back pains, and then from there it got into the heavy periods, which I was not really used to. I mean, I thought I'd had heavy periods before, but this is like insane. And because of that, what is happening inside of your body, it's like you literally feel like somebody is taking a knife and gutting out your system, and so you can't
Yes.
do anything. And then the
Yes.
migraines come, and if they're migraines, you can't watch TV, you can't listen to podcasts, you cannot do anything other than close your eyes and lie down
And
there in the
lay
darkness
down. Yeah.
until it's over.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes pills work, sometimes it didn't, sometimes tea worked, sometimes it didn't. And when I realized too that this was a problem, it was a trigger. Actually, I was talking to my sister early one morning, and I was just going off about something that was just not, it was trivial. And she's like, is your period about to come? I was like,
Wow. It's like telltale signs. She was,
I was like, wait,
okay.
what? And sure enough, it did come shortly after. And so that also helps me to start like tracking and seeing how things are. And so now I'm able to, like, if I can see myself having these negative thoughts over simple things, I'm like, all right, it's that
Yeah.
time for me to just
Yeah.
not really talk to many people right now. And then what how that affects entrepreneurship as well is because now there is even a longer lag time in your response time to people. You can't follow up. There are people who want to help you, but you can't get help from them because you just can't follow up with them. You're behind on most of your work, and if you don't have the right help, it just keeps piling on, and then all of that plus this transition, it's like, hold up, I need a moment. I need to try to fix this thing, and then get myself back on track. And I am going to talk about it because the only way I'm going to know how to fix it is if I talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's good.
So that's how that came up. And then, of course, because I was doing the year in review, I had to be like, listen, this is what's happening. This is
Yeah.
reality. I look like I'm 20 something, but I am actually 40 something. So,
Yeah.
I have to deal with this stuff.
No, that's so good. And you know what, too? I was saying to you earlier, Mel, that when I was doing my research and preparing, I saw where all the images and the different even infographics or real pictures in blogs and so forth, they were all older white women, usually
Yeah.
99% of the time, whenever I'd be doing the research. And I would always just look in the mirror and think to myself, but I am not them. So
Yeah.
is there a different conversation that somebody can have about me? And then I was like, well, you have a conversation, because I think while we talk about it in theory, so to speak, I think there is a lot to be said for the actual
Experience.
experience of
Yeah.
it.
The
The actual
experience. And
experience of it.
listening to some people talk about it too, it's like they're afraid to say anything, because we're supposed to be so tough and we must be able to move through it. When in actuality, it's not necessarily the case. It's just that there is not necessarily a lot of research that has been done on it, on how to kind of help you through the symptoms, apart from giving you the pill to take
Thank you.
to balance out the hormones. But the one of the big things with this transition period is that the change in hormonal levels or estrogen levels is very sporadic. So,
Mhm.
one day I may need the hormone pills, another day I
Yeah.
don't. Right.
No, that's
So
so
there has to
real.
be another way, right? And then it affects your mental state too, because it heightens if you have anxiety, if you've had
Mhm.
trauma in life before, it
Mhm.
brings back out all of those things because of this hormonal imbalance. And a lot of people take that for granted, and it's just, if we don't talk about it, it's just one of the many things that we've never spoken about for women.
Yeah.
And it has been affecting women for all of the years that they've transitioned into, from not going to work to working to
Yeah.
being as top level CEOs at Fortune 50 companies and stuff like that. And these things are necessary to talk about. It's not that we're trying to complain about it or make an excuse for what things are happening, but it's just the reality.
It's the
And if
reality.
we don't face the reality, we can't fix it, and we can't help the people, the younger generation, to prepare for it either.
There are so many good points that you raised there, Mel, that I want us to dive into in this conversation. I think the first thing is just talking about how, people say, what is the most unexpected thing? I think the most unexpected thing is that so many of the symptoms are unexpected,
Yes.
right? And you can't
All of
really
that.
like tell, who's, and it's day to day. It's not even just a week or two. So I remember, when I was initially having the conversations with my girls about their cycles and what to expect. You use a typical calendar where you're showing them, a week before, 2 weeks before, because your period is always on. It's just inside
Yeah.
your body and then outside your body, and but when I was having the discussion with my gynecologist just about some of the different things, and I was like, but it's just so sporadic. Like today, I will be great. Like I'll have maybe a great morning routine start that sticks. And then by the time I get to maybe an hour later, I'm like the biggest bitch ever because I
Yeah.
don't know what has happened. There's just
The
this
crazy
swing.
thing, the crazy thing is that you can actually see it and you can do nothing about it.
Yeah,
So like after that 2 week period of being like in this funk and being can't concentrate, can't anything, you wake
yeah,
up the next day and you're like, oh my God, I am the
yeah,
happiest person in this world and I can do anything. I can conquer the world.
yeah, yeah.
And you look back and you're like, who is that person?
Yeah. Like last week, where did this girl go?
Who is she?
And also one of the things that I've noticed about myself in particular is that especially teaching mindfulness and teaching about the power of intention and observing, doing self-awareness activations and so forth, is that whenever I am in an off my usual path state, it gets very difficult to navigate the negative thoughts. So the self-doubt conversations, which does not help with entrepreneurship whatsoever.
At all.
The complaining or catastrophizing about other people. So when you're in a team environment and it's just people that just not pulling them weight, or it just seems much larger
Yeah,
than
exactly.
it does when you're not kind of off your usual, path.
Exactly.
So there were some things that I've been seeing patterns around just the emphasis and the expansion of those thoughts that I suppose don't serve you, but then, I don't know that my gynecologist really gave me any, there's no kind of cure. That's not what happens. It's really
No.
more managing. So how, with all of this interruption happening in your year, where you're literally looking at like maybe 26 weeks that you were functional as an entrepreneur, when really we have to be, it's like normally we have to do double time and you can only do half the time, right? How have you been balancing this space now that you have the awareness?
So recently, I have been able to find a few things that have helped me lessen even the 2 week span.
Oh.
Um, and something that is extremely, extremely important to women that are going through this, especially women of color,
Mhm.
because of the because it's a known thing that if you have had trauma previously or have any kind of mental health history previously, then it can be heightened. Something that I think is one of the most important things to do at this point in your life is gratitude journaling.
Mm.
Because as you are gratitude journaling and just seeing every little thing as something beautiful, even though you get into this state of negativity during that
Mhm.
time, it
Mm-hmm.
lessens the negativity because you still have that muscle memory of being grateful for whatever other thing. And you're also aware that you're just going through this now because of this hormonal change. So that's why it's very important to be extremely self-aware and take a lot of self-care for
Mm-hmm.
yourself at this point in time, because
Mm-hmm.
those more than anything else, it's
Yeah.
that's what's going to help you to navigate dealing with it yourself, and also what you're projecting to other people during that time, right?
Wow.
And
Well,
this is
can we
why.
pause there? The gratitude journal piece. I want to just pause there because I'm pretty sure, and I actually wish I had my journal somewhere nearby because I did not know you were going to say that. And I'm like, guys, I'm putting a link for my journal that I just published. I'm going to put a link for the journal in the show notes so that you can grab them, and I'll post it on my socials tomorrow. But
Even your cards,
sometimes,
even your
yeah,
cards
even
are
the
good.
cards, that's a
The
great
cards are good.
idea.
Yeah, the cards are
Yeah.
good to look at every morning. You get up, you look at the cards. Hey, I'm beautiful. I'm this and that. Right?
Also, you're carving out a new target audience. I mean, no, to say I need to go and talk to the perimenopause
Yeah, I
women.
just
Hey,
remember my commission.
guys,
Okay, just remember my commission.
for sure.
But it's important though. Key thing is to deal with your previous trauma before you get to this stage,
Hmm.
and you cannot depend on yourself to deal with it. You need to go and
Hmm.
get professional help, because you are going to be in it and you're not going to realize that it is heightening things and making things worse for your own self and maybe the people around you. So
Oh,
that's
that's
something to
good.
do.
So essentially, one of the, which is a really great tip, I'll actually break it into two, right? So first tip is become curious about previous trauma or areas of your life that need healing. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just, I didn't expect to have that conversation at all. But now that we're talking about it, and even me thinking through, oh, so I noticed that I cannot grab for conscious Stacy when my hormone levels are shot, because conscious Stacy is like, no, we're gonna beat the girl, we're gonna fight her. That's still happening, right? So the first thing is um, we need to really get curious about how much more sensitive we are, and maybe, oh my gosh, the crying.
Girl,
I was crying. I just, yeah, that wasn't even on the list.
just for no reason. Just for
That
no
wasn't even
reason.
on the list. I'm gonna bring
Listen,
back up the
don't
list.
even watch like a romantic comedy or anything when you're in
Right.
this stage, because it's beer balling.
I have to bring back up the list because maybe crying is gonna fall under something else. Um,
It just falls under the mental health. It falls under
yeah,
um,
the mental
the
wellness
fluctuation of the
area.
hormones.
Yes, yes. No,
That's
it's a serious thing. And I was really like wondering what is wrong? Why am I crying so much? And then even sometimes just of late, I find myself with my kids, because my kids are all very close to transition stage. My son is getting ready to leave university. I have a daughter getting ready to go off to university. And I'm finding myself, just when I'm having those discussions with them, that I just feel sad
oh
and
my god,
just
my children are leaving
my,
me.
yes, and what does this mean? My uterus is dying. It's like,
I
this
can't.
this whole thing. And you may be experiencing that too. You out there in the community, you may be experiencing one or more of these symptoms. You may be experiencing the feeling like the things that you've had in your past are more traumatic now, or they just are all of a sudden surfacing now.
Well, I tell
All,
you that the reason that I'm not having it as bad as I have seen it is that I did the work, and
you
I've
did the
always
work.
done the work. And anytime I see like like recently, I've been trying to deal with this fog and the lack of concentration, which
Yeah.
a lot of my symptoms are ADHD type symptoms.
Mhm.
So I end up going to this doctor who turns out to be a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. And so she has said, no, I need to go and do a brain scan, but she also
Mhm.
gave me this medication for anxiety instead, right?
Okay.
Now, I wasn't
Okay.
feeling mentally anxious nor bodily anxious, but I can see where that is attributed, could attribute to some of the things, right?
Mhm.
And she gave me these pills, and I took the pills for like 3 days, and I had to stop
Oh.
because it sent me in even a worse state. Like
Oh
it sent
wow.
me in a state I wasn't in before.
Yeah.
till the
Yeah.
day, till the 2 days after I stopped taking it. When I woke up the next day, I looked around and I was like, "Whose house is this?" Because I don't live in no place like
Wow.
that, right? But
Yeah.
this is. But I've always been extremely self-aware of things that are happening with me mentally and physically. And I have no problem saying that I am deficient in these areas, or whatever it is, because
Yeah.
that's the only way for me to be able to figure it out and fix it, right? And so
No,
that
that's good.
that has been a key thing in quickly moving
Mhm.
me out of this. Oh my God, the world is not on my side right now.
Yes.
Nobody loves me, and I have the worst life ever, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, so
No, that's
this
good.
is key, right? Now, the other things that are important that I want to talk about is your interaction with other people. So
Hmm.
you need to make sure that there are people around you that are supportive.
Yes.
So, like how my
Hmm.
sister was like, "Girl,
Yeah.
you have
Check
autism."
it. Check the calendar. What's going on? Pull out your clue or your flow or your whatever you use because it's coming.
Exactly, exactly. Or when we went to the retreat, so many people came up to me afterwards, like either they have been through it, or even the men were like, "Hey, if you need this, da, 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 da," but it's because I talk about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And stick up in there with the men because I think I saw actually on my LinkedIn where a couple of guys were like, yeah, thumbs up for the event. And it's so important that men are also in the conversation because if you have a love partner that you're in space with and you just see this person flipping, I mean, I have seen Honey Boo look at me sideways like, no, man, something is off.
Or even if you're working with people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because they
yeah.
might be like, "But this
That's
girl
even
always
more
performs
common.
much better. How come she not performing now?" And before you
Yeah.
know, you're fired. But it's just because you're going through
You're
this thing, right?
biting off people's heads. Maybe you're a little more temperamental. Maybe you're forgetful.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really gets me curious, which is probably why so many women, like when you look at the pipeline of ascension, it's really a leaky pipeline because by the time you are hitting your peak C-suite age, which is from 40 to 60, right? That 20 years is when you're now supposed to be like, especially
Yeah.
45 to 55.
Ready.
That's
Ready.
when you're ready and you have all of this wisdom, and that's when you start to clock the real dollars because you're operating at a particular level.
Exactly.
And that is when we truly
And
forget to
here
put
comes the
down.
brain fog. Like I literally am on the phone sometimes talking to somebody, and I cannot call their name.
Yeah. Ooh, that's another one. Yeah. The
Like I just
forgetting
can't
the
call
name.
their name. Not that
Yeah.
I don't know what their name is. I just can't
Yeah,
call
I know
it.
it too. Yeah, yeah. I actually have a great deal of respect for women who are showing up at a senior level, C-suite level, and are really bossing it. It just, my whole idea of
Yeah,
women being balanced lady bosses just took a whole other
exactly.
shift when
Because
I
if they're going through
realized.
this while doing that, let me tell you.
Hot, and when you talk about even things like hot flashes,
Oh, thank
like,
God
I
I don't
mean,
have both.
I don't have those yet either. I think I had an experience of a hot flash in the last year. I think I did. I don't know if it was just a hormonal shift. I've already made up my mind that I'm just not getting those. No matter what age I get to, we're just not doing hot flashes. We're
My
just not
mother,
interested. Just not
I
interested.
see, I see the heat
You see
coming
the
out of
heat,
her.
right? Right. But it's not. It's a different kind of heat. I
Yeah,
understand. But I've seen the sweat. I've seen my mom just like get drenched. And I'm thinking to
It's like
myself, what
somebody threw water on them.
yeah, in a board meeting and you're in the middle of a presentation and you get a hot flash. You must just sit through. Like yeah, like how do we navigate? I think maybe this part two of this is me bringing on somebody that's
That
in the
has
C-suite,
navigated it.
yeah, that has actually gone through dealing with that. And maybe it is that they already know where they are, so they just bring their scarf, handkerchief, or whatever, and they just continue on
That's
and keep on.
understand.
It's like, yeah, it's like when you're a new mom and you're going back to work. Like I've had that where my milk leaks out on my
Oh,
blouse, and your breasts are achy because they're full of milk, and I've had those situations. But I just don't
oh, we
think
really have it, Hattie? Jesus.
I don't think that our current corporate structures, which were created and designed by for men by men, really support women and how we evolve. Now, I know there has been, especially with COVID, there was a lot of conversation coming out of COVID about just changing, adjusting the work environment to
Mhm.
allow us to thrive, regardless of what was happening. I know that it hasn't necessarily taken off like a rocket ship because, of course,
Yeah,
we're out of pandemic now, but I do think it is something that I would even be interested in working in that space to kind of see how we can
absolutely.
redesign our working environment to facilitate
Support.
facilitate and support for our transition in life, because we are really great at work. Like women are
Yeah,
amazing contributors to innovation and new thinking and diversifying the ideation and brainstorming process, and even
exactly.
the way that we implement things. We
Productivity,
are
everything.
necessary. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're necessary at the table, at all the tables. So how do we foster an environment that actually talks about the fact that, hey,
mhm.
she's approaching this age or she is this age.
Yeah.
So
What
what
extra
are
support can we give
what
her
can
for
we
this
give her
period?
for
Yeah,
that? So it's a big deal. I think that we don't often pay attention to.
yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Okay.
So
So I have another question for you, which
okay.
is where I think I'm gonna, after you answer this one, and I'll circle back with the tips, right? But I believe that everything that we experience in life contributes to our becoming in some way, right? Whether it's working on you or through you or in you, there's always growth available to us, right? Whatever thing it is. I have said, and I'll admit that this perimenopausal thing now grow nothing. Like all it do make me struggle. um, but I started off actually when I was deciding how to have this conversation. I started down the path of, is there purpose in Perry? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that I have the good things that Perry or whatever it is I'm going through right now has brought on me is that I have become, I mean, before I was happy with where I was in life, but I had this major drive that would sometimes pull me into, oh my God, I'm not where I need to be thing. And I have, I, believe it or not, I have created this crazy sense of calm in my space, in my being. Um,
Mm,
and I have also become a lot happier, just in general. Um, and it also brought me to realize that, so I always thought that my main purpose was to connect people, and connect them to opportunity. But in looking back, I also realized that uh, a big purpose of mine is to be a messenger, because I have never really been afraid to talk about things that people don't want to talk about. And because I have been that way, more people have gained knowledge on things that other people are suffering about and they don't want to talk about it. And the only way for those people to not to continue to suffer is by having someone out there who's going to be this voice. And so I think that that has also that has brought up that purpose, this transition period.
No, that's good. That's good. I would also say that for me, the purpose I feel that this experience is serving and will, I suppose, continue to serve for however long my process is. It's just really being more attentive to my body and showing myself grace, and
Exactly.
not just the physical, but also my mental state. When I was diagnosed clinically depressed and anxious back in 2012 or whatever year it was, it took me a minute to get comfortable with understanding what that meant and
Mhm.
how I wanted to support myself, because I didn't want to do the medication. And it took a lot of convincing for the psychiatrist not to put me on a medication,
Yeah.
right? Um, However, I feel that even with all the consciousness work and the tea time discussions and all the different things that I'm developing to support other people, I think perimenopause, or this experience of symptoms of what seems to be perimenopause, has helped me to really take myself
Yeah,
back to
you need the
center.
oxygen mask.
Yeah, I need the oxygen mask first.
Yeah.
And it has me exploring just anything that can get me to peace. So my meditations have amped up. The gratitude meditations have been amplified. Like when I look back at my history last year in particular, there are a lot of gratitude meditations. And then since this year, my meditations have been now more including calm, a lot of breath work, breathing to bring me down, because it's just like I feel like I'm on this thing and I'm not getting anything done, but I'm up
The
here,
breathing is
you
important.
know. Yeah. So definitely finding my path to peace is what is the purpose I think that Perry has amplified for me. I did want to talk just a little bit about diagnosis, because I've been talking to my gynecologist. I was actually really curious to hear how your conversations with your gynecologist have been going, because I don't know if there is I mean, when I read up, Healthline and Mayo Clinic and all these other places, it just, all the symptoms seem like they can overlap at different points in
Yeah,
time. And it could be, so it's more pay attention. It's not, you have perimenopause, here's a prescription.
exactly.
That's not the way it goes. How has it been for you?
Well, my gynecologist has not been quick to say it's perimenopause at any point in time. This could also be because we're friends and the same age, so he may not want to be acknowledging that we're at that age.
That's
um,
funny.
but he is more, and he has always been this way, just more about looking at the root cause of
Mhm.
things. So he will always try to test things first,
Mhm.
before like whatever blood test he might need to make sure that he rules out all the things that are easier to figure out
Yeah.
before before getting to that stage. So I think we're in that stage of trying to figure out.
Yes, yes. No, that's good. That's good to have. And for those viewers who have joined live, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them as we get closer to kind of the top of the hour where we'll be closing things out. So the tips that I have so far, which I think the beauty of conversations like this is that you don't really know kind of where it's going to land, which is one of the reasons why I actually like the live discussions too. To
Yeah,
some extent, I have a bit of a bias, but definitely that first thing of becoming curious and observant.
hmm,
Start paying attention. If you weren't paying attention to your body before, you definitely want to start paying attention to your body now. Women, you guys know you are so busy. You are doing so many things. Even if you don't have children, you are stacked to the hilt with all the different things that you are loading up onto your back that you are carrying.
yeah,
Especially if you consider yourself a high performing woman, you are more than likely doing probably more than you need to be doing at any given moment, right? And what that equates to is not usually taking the time to observe yourself. And if you say to me, yes, Stacey, I observe myself. All right. When you see something that is happening, does it set off? Let me just
Are
make
you
a
doing
note
something
about
about
this.
it?
Right? No, it's just like, oh yeah, my periods are heavy. Oh, well, that means I just need to buy more napkins or whatever the case is. No, why are my periods heavier? Do I need to allow my body some more, rest during that time because it's processing more things? Like, start to get curious and observant about just your well-being and way of being. Second thing, which this was my favorite thing out of everything we talked about, and you know what I'm going to say, gratitude journaling and setting affirmations. I love this gem. Guys, can you imagine that something as simple and easily accessible as gratitude journaling can actually support you on your perimenopausal journey? Like, this is a high, high recommendation from the Balanced Lady Boss. I'm just saying that if you are not yet,
I will say too to not stop at three, because usually most people do three for the day. I
yeah.
would say to force yourself to 10 things to be grateful for, because it
Oh,
forces you then to be grateful for the smaller things.
oh, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Yes, and we're going to make sure that you have the tools necessary to do that. Affirmations for sure have helped me to get kind of that path to peace. Like, even this morning, I was having one of those mornings where it's been a kind of a flip flop from Saturday to now. But when I got to Friday last week, I was just done. I was like, my gosh, thank you that we are at the end of the week because I cannot go anymore. Please, somebody bring me a drink. Like, I just can't. And this was probably by midday Friday, right? Um, and then Saturday morning, um, I did this beautiful meditation and I had this amazing breakthrough. It was literally like the phoenix rising out of the fire. That is how I felt, Melissa. Let me tell you.
I tell you, it's just like one day you're down and the next day you're like, wait,
You
where
know,
does this come
and
from?
I had an amazing tea time. I run, come, and that actually, that energy lasted throughout the entire day. I had a class that I had wanted to take. I joined a challenge. I was like this, and then Sunday morning,
Did again.
I was upset. I didn't even want to talk to Honey Boy about it because I was like, this man must think say I am crazy. I mean, I was listening to meditation after meditation, and I could not shift it. What actually helped me is that I got outside and I
Yeah,
went and I spent some time with my grandma and my
that's one
niece.
of the things that I was going to talk about.
We went and visited the Century Palms up at Hope, and just I did something to completely distract me from what I was feeling. You
It's
know.
important for you to every week at least one time go outside and do something outside. Just
Yeah.
do something outside. Not in
Yes.
the not go to a restaurant in the AC. Go outside and spend some time out there.
Especially now that on the north side of the world, which, well, on the which side of it, western or eastern side, western side of the world, we're heading into our spring summery season. So there's no excuse, guys. Get out of the house. I know it's been raining a lot in London, but I would say even go out and feel some raindrops for a little bit and then go back inside for sure.
It's important to
Uh,
get the sunshine on your skin as
yes,
well if you
and
can.
the
Um,
third tip I had was around finding your path to peace, which is where what we're talking about. Identify the thing that works for you. First, for me, it's meditation, and most days yoga, like a short yoga session. Even some days I'll feel like I want to exercise, so I'll do a short exercise thing. But do something that gets you and your mind aligned, feeling like connected to yourself, feeling good about yourself. And I would say to do it even if it doesn't last, because as I was sharing, it didn't last for me, but I made sure that I did it so that I have something there that is my anchor, that
yeah.
allows me to get back to center. And then the last tip is talk about it. Definitely, if you are experiencing, and it can be fun, guys. We've been having fun this entire conversation.
Exactly.
So it's nothing to be ashamed of. I know there are many of you that are struggling with the aging process. Just the fact that you are now late 30s, 40s, and some of us are staring at the 50 number in a couple of years. And it can be quite daunting. I don't think anybody has, certainly not me, I haven't been prepared for what aging is now because of social media and all of that. It's like, you just feel this
Yeah.
age thing
Mm-hmm.
in a way you didn't before. I am, however, encouraged by the Gabrielle Unions and the Jennifer Lopez's and the Halle Berrys of the world, because if it's Jim them going, whatever them doing at
That's
50,
good.
60, so I'm like, okay, future is still somewhat bright. All right. So as we wrap up, Melissa, is there any one piece of advice that you would want to give to the ladies in our community and any of the men or women that are watching the live stream or the recording for this?
Um, I would say just do more of everything that brings you peace,
Mm,
regardless of what it is. If it is means that you like to look at flowers, go look at the flowers. If you like to eat chocolate, have a piece of chocolate. Just more of those things, less of the other things, and limit the people around you that take away the
mm.
peace from
Ooh, can we talk about that?
you.
Yes.
There's some other things that I've taken that has helped too, which I'll just send so you can put them in however you
Oh, the show notes.
disseminate
Yeah, you can share now before
information.
we complete. If you just want to share a couple of them, that's fine. Sure.
Sure. I've ramped up on, so in also taking care of my face, I had to ramp up on D3 vitamins and fish oil, and that
Mm,
has been helpful.
mm,
Also, so some things have happened by accident. So I got sick in terms of like a bad flu,
mhm,
and I was drinking soursop and moringa.
mm,
And since then, I've also learned that that is helpful to this stage of life in
mm,
women.
mm.
In terms of the moringa, if you don't plan to have any more children, then that one is probably better because in some instances it can be a contraceptive, but the
Oh,
soursop one is more of a fertility side.
okay.
And then two other things that I found this great tea shop at Devon House. I don't know if you guys know
Yes,
about
yes,
it.
lemongrass.
They
Mhm.
have this thing called bluegrass mint.
Mm.
That's one. It's a combination of lemongrass, peppermint, and butterfly pea.
Yes,
And
I love
all of those
butterfly.
things combined is good for this process as well. And then
Mm.
they have another one that's called Damiana.
Mm.
And Damiana is also good for balancing out the hormones and stuff like that. So
Oh, no, that's really good.
some
Okay, so we're
additional.
gonna get all of that, and I'm gonna put them in the show notes. And wherever you are and you're watching this, if you have a tea shop near you, most of my audience is actually in the U.S. and Canada. So with Jamaica coming in right after that, so we'll make sure to just
We'll have to
say
create
tea
a package
shop.
for them and put them in.
Yes, yes, for sure. Awesome.
Always keep thinking of
Okay.
business.
Girl, I'm already like, y'all need to get the journal. I am literally thinking about how I'm going to talk about perimenopause, the journal, and the cards. It's over. It is done. We're going to be doing this. We're going to have a
Let's
summer
remember
campaign.
application.
Yes. Is you same one going to help me to map it out? You stay there.
That's right. Snap your leaf.
All right. Thank you so much for joining the Balance Lady Boss Show tonight, Melissa. And thank you,
Thank you. It was
audience, for
great.
joining us live. For those of you that were able to join us live, and for those of you that are watching the replay or are listening, because this is, of course, going to be placed on all my platforms where my podcast is, I just want to encourage you to watch the video or at least come onto YouTube and check the show description. Click on some of the links that are going to be shared there. Get your journal and your cards if you are in need of support to find your path to peace. I also think I'm going to make a couple recommendations around meditations that I've been doing inside my meditation app because I think that can certainly work. And Nadine is saying, thank you for your honesty and insights. Yes, Nadine, you're going to have to catch the top of the show, the top of the hour, where we actually went through the list and talked about each of our symptoms that we have.
Mhm.
So thank you very much, Mel, for joining, and thanks everybody that has tuned in to another episode of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. See you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.